Hello, everybody. Welcome to Let's Talk Assassin's Creed, your number one podcast for all things Assassin's Creed. Today's a unique episode. We're doing the first part of our deep dive Assassin's Creed episodes, where me and a special host, who'll be coming into the episodes now and then, Josh, will be doing personal deep dives into all 11 mainline Assassin's Creed games, one a week for 11 weeks. And we'll basically go over our own thoughts, feelings, how we enjoy the games and the mechanics. Every week we'll do a review out of 10 on how we enjoyed the game. But because Josh is joining today, we're going to do, I'll do 5, he does 5, we'll add them together and that makes 10. If it works. So hopefully Josh should be here.
I am here, hello.
Oh god, I crapped myself. It didn't work. Right. It worked. So this is new territory for us all. This is Josh, my good friend from a community I'm in called the Gamer Hive. He's a great man.
Thank you.
So this will be the first one, guys. If it doesn't work, please tell me in whatever comments you find me on, because I can barely find myself in the mornings. Right. So you ready to dive in, Josh?
Indeed. Let's do it.
Right. So today's episode is AC1, Assassin's Creed 1. So let's kick off with your thoughts on the gameplay.
I mean, gameplay-wise, I thought it was pretty good. You know, it was smooth. It was, you know, quite slick. Everything kind of moved from point to point nicely. In terms of gameplay, I thought there was some repetitive elements to the gameplay. That I guess if you're not into that style of game, it would be difficult and you probably wouldn't make it to the end. But for me, it wasn't enough to put me off. I think, you know, it can get tiresome, some of the elements, but overall, I think kind of gameplay wise, it was a pretty solid effort for a first entry.
And I do agree. And I think I feel a lot of fans are coming from Prince of Persia, which was repetitive in combat at times, kind of felt second nature, but it was the doorway into a franchise that nobody knew, not even me, would grew to 11 games and too many books and comics for me to describe.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's one of those, if you take the kind of other 10 games out of the equation and look at this as a standalone game, being overly critical and harsh, I don't think it stands up as a great game. But when you look at it as this was part of Ubisoft's plan, and the first game gave them this platform to build on to make improvements, I think it all makes perfect sense.
And I do agree. And I think with Prince of Persia reaching a pinnacle of its point, because after Assassin's Creed Prince of Persia dipped off, I think they did need that extra doorway, because they did try and make Prince of Persia Assassins, which turned to Assassin's Creed, which is why a lot of the gameplay was Prince of Persia with the free running and the combat. Great game for me. I love the gameplay. You know, I'd replay it right now if I could, but sadly it's not on PS4. But I do agree, if they did keep this as a standalone game and never expanded to 2 and onwards, I think the game wouldn't have had so much life, because the first few months, like you said, it was a fun game, but after a year or 2 years, no one's going to really want to replay it as games evolve.
I think I just, in terms of the actual kind of dynamics of the game, you know, leap of faiths, you know, the parkour, stealth, even like the sword fighting, which I fell in love with, the combat side of things when the game came out. That is all so solid and it's so smooth, and it, you know, it took existing things that we've seen before and really kind of gave them that polish. So from that, in that respect, that gameplay side of things, I thought it was great.
And I do agree with you. I think, like you said, as we are now in 2010, I would not want another Assassin's Creed with the sword mechanics, because it was great for the time, but in 2020, I don't want to be seeing a press circle, press square kind of combo 24/7. 20 guards, let's just mash circle and square for instant kills. But it's still fun. So let's look at the story, because a game, even with the most fantastic world and gameplay, will still fall short if the story's not good enough. Now, for me, I think the story is fantastic because not many games are able to blend sci-fi and real history to create something weirdly cool. But I'd love to hear your thoughts.
I think the story's okay. I think it does very well to set up what became obviously the base of what is Assassin's Creed for many years, which is the Assassin Order versus the Templar Order and the history behind that. I think it did very well to set that up and give us that platform going forward. Sometimes I felt like the story moved a bit too slow. I think it struggled for me with some tempo issues in areas. But overall, I think there was a repetitive nature to some of the, kind of quests and stuff that can get a bit tiresome. But overall, I thought the story was pretty good, and a good. The thing is, it's such a complex story at its heart that you don't want to overwhelm people too much in the first game, so no one has any idea what's going on. It's finding that balance between this is a completely new thing that we've got to teach you about, but we also don't want to make it so boring that you forget that this is a game. So yeah, I thought they found that balance quite well. Maybe a bit of change into the pacing side of things, but other than that, I thought it was pretty good.
And I would agree. Like, I think with how the series is now, with the Isu, Templars, I think we've had about 10 different time zones from ancient Greece all the way up to steampunk Victorian era London. I think you are right in saying if all that convoluted history was in the first game, it would have been overwhelming. But as you said, you were giving a sort of complex story about genetic memories, and then the bleeding effect started near the end, which was kind of like, what is this? Why are we seeing memories? Why are we getting the eagle vision all of a sudden? Why the memories merge? And it really does seem like, even though it's slow and repetitive gameplay, that we're setting up for what's next, what came afterwards, which we want to talk about today, was kind of cool. But is it right in saying that if Assassin's Creed 1 wasn't built the way it was, that maybe the rest wouldn't have worked as well?
I think there's certainly many elements, excuse me, looking back on Assassin's Creed 1 and what the series has evolved to become, you can see there's a lot of setting up. There's a lot of building. They had plans for a franchise. They knew where it was going to go, but they needed this jumping in point to get things ready, to dial things up a bit. Considering what it grew into and the great games we've had throughout the series, you take a bit of sometimes boring and repetitive gameplay in the first entry if it means it's going to keep improving and keep getting better. And I think the most important thing was to introduce this world to us as fans, and kind of I didn't mind the combat. I thought it was good in terms of I'm glad they've changed it, but for me it was like watching it, when done well, it was like watching a ballerina. I thought it was graceful, to get that timing down fight after fight, and I just never get bored of watching those death animations and killing animations, and because it just looks so good. But they took every element of this game and created something huge.
And I do agree. I think it was just me because when I played Assassin's Creed 1, I was like an elephant with two left feet. My skills weren't the best. I could parkour like a ninja, haybell dive like a ninja, get in a fight, and I'm just like, yeah, I'm going to quit, reload my save, and start stealthing this. And I think stealth is something that we should touch upon because now when Origins and Odyssey's gone past and it's a really good game that we'll look into in the next few weeks, what was your views on the stealth mechanics from 1? Because I personally find the stealth mechanics are really good, but they're not as perfect as they could be for games such as, I think it was Splinter Cell, which was out at that time. Could the mechanics of Assassin's Creed 1 be a bit more in depth without changing the gameplay too much?
Yeah, I think so. I thought the stealth mechanics were pretty good. It was, certainly the first game I'd played personally where there was a focus on stealth as an option. It could have been better, sure, but I think it was generally good in terms of the element of choice for assassinations. There was always a way to choose your route stealth as a stealth option. You could go in all guns blazing, or you can work out your stealth option. I think it was quite good, quite smooth. You had the mixture of your hay bales and things like that, but also your social stealth with your groups of people that you could blend into. I think, fortunately, for people that didn't like stealth, the AI was pretty, I wouldn't say intelligent. I wouldn't say that it was the most intelligent AI we've ever come across, but I think that therein lies probably how the stealth could have been better. I think good AI makes for good stealth.
I think some of the stealth concepts Assassin's Creed 1, I can't knock them because there's nothing better than pretending to be I think it's the preachers. Sorry, I just played it and sneaking up some guy and then just stabbing him. But at times it was kind of a bit what? Because you're this kitted out, head to toe assassin, you've killed 20 guards, and you go sit on a bench and all the guards are like, huh, where he gone? It's like, really? I'm sat next to a guy in a normal suit, a woman in a dress, and I'm the guy with knives on my shirt, and you're just like, oh,
Yeah.
we've lost him. And that's not a knock at the game because every game has weird concepts, but some of the concepts back then just baffled me. When the monks, you could just pray with them. It's like, come on, you're bound to tell the assassin's in there. He's the one wearing all the funky robes.
I think because the most important thing for any game that has an element of choice to how you approach a mission or an objective or anything like that is risk reward. And the issue is,
Definitely,
you need to have a good AI system for stealth, to be a viable, or at least to be, a good option that has risks but the appropriate rewards. I think the AI was particularly bad in some points, that it was like, well, there's no risk to this and it doesn't make sense. So it's a difficult one. Because it was obviously their first try at this in this game, and again I keep circling back in my own head to this became the platform. It seems like this game was a lot of testing out features and testing out mechanics and what works, what doesn't, what did work but needs to be improved. And I think stealth for me in this game probably falls under that category. They had a great go at it and it was a very good feature, quite fun to experiment with, but needed work, and I think they knew that.
So the big question on my lips, a lot of people's lips, and it's a debate a lot of us are having as fans, and that's, as of please don't shoot me for this, but I think it was 2019 Odyssey came out. I think it was 2019. I'm so going to get trouble for this. I can't remember the date.
I think it was actually 2018 that Odyssey came out. Yeah.
2018. That sounds about right. 2018. But back in 2018, Assassin's Creed 3 was remastered, and that finally brings the Ezio Collection, 3, Flag, all the way up, leaving Assassin's Creed 1 in the dust. But now Xbox One has it on the backwards compatibility mechanics, and a lot of us are wondering, should they remaster 1 with a bit of code, a bit of fix, or should they remake it with new gameplay elements and and using the graphic engine for Origins and Odyssey?
It's interesting. Personally, I'm not. It's not a game I want to see remastered, simply because I don't. I wouldn't go and play through it again for the story. I think I've got an old copy of Assassin's Creed 1. If I feel like it, I can pop it in and play it. I'll never play that story from start to finish again. It's highly unlikely that I will. Therefore, I don't really want a remaster because I don't think we need one. I'm sure there will be people that disagree and would like it to be remastered. I'm generally not a massive fan of remastering games anyway. It's something that I feel like it's a lazy way to create some hype. If you're gonna go along the lines of, say, Final Fantasy VII remastered, where it's basically the story that's been remastered, but it's a different game. It's so completely different, obviously, from the original version. It's probably worth investing my time into if you're going to change it. But that's not. I don't love Assassin's Creed 1. I love it the way it is. I don't want it to be changed. If that makes any sense.
That makes sense. For me, I want it remastered for the nostalgia feel, because even though I say to everyone I've played all Assassin's Creed games, what I failed to admit is I rushed most of them. So I played 1 back in 2007, and then I jumped straight into 2 when it came out. And the only games I've ever replayed fully is 4 all the way up to Odyssey, because the availability for the other games is very sketchy. Like Rogue didn't get remastered for a couple of years. It stayed as an old gen title. And the Ezio Collection is just mainly a HD port, but it's really good, that I've not had the chance to play. And it just means new fans of the series can revisit all the old games if they want. But if they don't have an Xbox One, they're screwed. Because if they have an Xbox One, they can do the backwards compatibility for 1 and then play Ezio Collection upwards. But for fans on PS4, they can't really do that. They can just play 2 and upwards if they want to revisit the story from start to end, as if they're brand new players. And I think that's a bit unfair if someone says, you know what, I enjoyed Odyssey and Origins. I want to know what the main story is. But I'm going to have to watch a YouTube video for 1, then I can play 2, then I can play 3, and so forth. So I kind of think a remaster might be a good idea for them sort of fans, because at the moment it's just a black hole in the universe. It just stops when no one can replay it unless they have a PC or Xbox.
Yeah, I think that's, as much as I kind of see where you're coming from, and I do get what you're saying, I think that ends up being a kind of where does it end kind of question, in terms of, there's lots of games where I've got into a series late, but I've had to rely on my own research to find out kind of any story stuff before that, because the games aren't available anymore. I think that's probably true for a lot of things. Unfortunately, sometimes I think it can't just. If they would remaster Assassin's Creed 1, would I play it? Of course I would play it. I've played Assassin's Creed 3 God knows how many times. Obviously, I played through the remastered version as well. I just would, because I would have to. But I don't. Is it? And this is not strictly for Assassin's Creed. This kind of goes across all kind of game series and things like that. Is it worth the time and resources? Would I rather see them put that time and resources into Valhalla? 100%.
And I kind of, to be honest, I do agree with you. In my heart, I do want Assassin's Creed 1 because I miss replaying Altair's story. But you are right. In this day and age with technology and graphical uprising, how much manpower will it take to redo it? And what could be the next selling point, because AC3 Remastered selling point isn't just AC3, it's Liberation and all the DLC. For one, you're just getting a base game. They could throw in HD ports of Bloodline, which is the PSP, but we know how PSP ports to consoles sometimes flop. So maybe you are right. I do agree that maybe in a heart it'd be great to have it, but maybe it'd be too difficult at this moment in time to remaster it. Unless, and I think they should, because I'm going to like big it up as much as possible, streaming services add it to it. Xbox has got it streaming on their service for backwards compatibility, and PS Now can do the same through PS3. Oh, maybe instead of resourcing it on remaster, why don't they put it on a streaming platform for others to stream?
Yeah,
I would.
I mean, there's so many games that you can just play at the push of a button with PS Now and Xbox Game Pass and things like that. I would much rather them, and the PS Now, just for example, has got so many like PlayStation 3 games that you can play, and it's even got PlayStation 2 games that you can play at the push of a button. I'd rather see them add it to a streaming service like that. I think then it becomes accessible. We're not putting too many resources into actually, greenlighting a full-scale remaster, but we're also doing our bit to help fans that want to play the older games.
And I 100% agree. I've been playing PS Now like it's blooming Netflix. Blooming amazing. Destroy All Humans PS2 is still better at this moment in time till the remaster comes out. But that's a different show. So I think that's all we've got time for tonight. So let's do a roundup of our reviews. And let's start. I would normally do a review out of 10, but because I'm joined with Josh, we're going to do 2 reviews out of 5. And then we'll add the scores together, and that'll give us an average out of 10. So it seems fair if Josh isn't able to attend an episode and I take charge, it's still an out of 10 review, if that makes sense. Because it may make sense in my head, but I've had too much tea to even realise what I'm saying.
Where do we stand on half points?
Right. Half points?
Yeah,
we could add half points. I don't see why not. I've got a calculator somewhere if I need it. So, as you're the guest, I would love to hear your review out of 5.
I would probably give Assassin's Creed 1 a 3 out of 5. Yeah, look,
sounds very healthy review.
It's not a bad game. It's not great. I don't think it's a great game, but it's a good game. I think it introduced a lot of things that would become great as the series progressed, and just for that reason, it started this love affair that we have with Assassin's Creed. So for that reason, it will always have a very special place in my heart. But not the greatest game, but a game I enjoyed nonetheless.
Well, I think for me, I think it's just because I'm like such a fanboy, I would have to give it a 4. I do agree. I would knock a whole point off because it was repetitive at times. The combat until Unity did still, to me, to this day, feels too arcadey and repetitive. It's cool to see and play, but the whole idea of just being able to stand with 20 guards and just press 2 buttons to kill all 20 is kind of repetitive in nature, but still fun.
I think it was fine for its time.
So, for its time, yes, I can really see it coming on now. But
run around the town and see just how many guards you can round up to fight in one group.
I did.
Smoke bomb them with 50 there, and you're like, right, now I'm ready. Let's do this.
So I think that would give a good score of 7.5 out of 10, which for a game that is 13 years old is kind of a decent score. And I think at the time IGN did rate it about 8, so it's a good game. I think if you ever had the opportunity to replay it, I think I would suggest people replay it, but maybe, as we did discuss, remaster isn't the best way about it for now for resources. But We all have our own special heart for Assassin's Creed 1. I love it. I think it was cool for the time. And without it, we would not have got this amazing genre that we have now. That is one of the greatest franchises going. 13
And I
years
think it's
of
become
evolution.
kind of, for me, it just feels like Assassin's Creed has become like its own genre. It's just like its own
Historical sci-fi.
collection, its own subset in gaming that we only ever really compare Assassin's Creed games to other Assassin's Creed games. I've never
I've
had a
never noticed
conversation with
that
someone
now.
about Assassin's Creed and critiqued it against something that isn't an Assassin's Creed game. And I think that just shows how big of a thing Assassin's Creed has become. It lives within its own universe, and only, it compares to its own games. And I think that's a real special thing to be able to do that.
And I'm going to agree to you there because I have heard the old Witcher 3 comment for Odyssey, but you are right. No one's ever said to me, Odyssey is not like this, and this. Everyone said, oh, but what about Origins? What about the old game? So it's as if you are right. People review it on its past, and that's kind of intriguing for a game creation because most game creations are like, oh, if it's a first-person shooter, it'll get commented to Call of Duty or Battlefield. If it's an RPG, you usually get the Skyrim and the Witcher mock-offs. But with Assassin's Creed, it usually is just all about Assassin's Creed. And I think that's a testament to how fantastic the genre has got. So I think that's where we're going to end the episode tonight. Next week will be a deep dive on AC2,
one last note from me: if they do remaster Assassin's Creed 1, I'll happily play through it again. But I am not collecting all those flags again. That is not going to happen. I refuse to collect all the flags again.
You're not getting the collectibles. Oh. And if anybody remembers how mad the games are for collectibles, I'm going to be individually doing 2 Provoked Revelations, and them games had some mad collectibles as well. But nothing can beat 4's sea shanties, because them things freaking fly. Kid you not. Because that will be week. Wait, this is week 5. Sorry, I get confused with this Brotherhood Revelations. That'll be week 5. We're going to talk about the flying sea shanties. So this is Let's Talk Assassin's Creed, and Josh
Thanks, guys. Thank you very much.
Signing off for the night.